Welcome to a story that will challenge the mind and push the boundaries of fear. Sometimes, the deepest shadows hide just beneath the surface of the most ordinary lives, and it is human curiosity that drives us to peer into that abyss. We seek understanding, even when it makes us shudder. Before we step into this realm of horror, I invite you, if you find yourself drawn to the darkest mysteries and captivated by the art of storytelling, to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support allows me to continue bringing you gripping, thought-provoking tales like this one. Now, prepare yourself. What you are about to read is a work of fiction, but one that delves into our most primal fears. This is the chronicle of the Phantom of Jade City, a serial killer who brought a great American city to its knees, leaving behind a wave of terror and a haunting question. What truly lurks within certain human souls? The relentless, weeping sky of Seattle had always been a comforting blanket for Sarah Jenkins. It mirrored the city's quiet introspection, a backdrop against which her life as a freelance graphic designer unfolded in a series of muted tones and vibrant creative bursts. But on the crisp, rain-slicked morning of October 17th, the sky offered no solace. It merely bore witness to the grotesque tableau discovered in her Capitol Hill apartment, a scene that would forever shatter the city's sense of security. Sarah was found by her building manager, a kindly octogenarian named Mrs. Goldberg, who had become concerned when Sarah's typically punctual rent check hadn't appeared. The apartment door, usually secured with a deadbolt and chain, was ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning. Mrs. Goldberg, her heart thrumming with an inexplicable premonition, pushed it open. The silence that greeted her was not the usual empty quiet of an unoccupied dwelling, but a heavy, unnatural hush. Sarah lay on her living room floor, meticulously arranged. Her eyes, wide and unseeing, stared up at the water-stained ceiling. Her body, clad in a simple white nightgown, was unervingly pristine, save for the single, deep incision across her throat, executed with surgical precision. There was no struggle, no sign of forced entry, no disturbed furniture, merely the chilling implication of a silent, almost reverent act of violence. Beside her outstretched hand, delicately placed as if a macabre offering, was a small, intricately carved wooden bird, its feathers painstakingly detailed, its tiny eyes seemingly observing the horror. It was an immature black-capped chickadee, a species common to the Pacific Northwest, yet its presence felt profoundly alien. The first responders, their faces grim, moved with a practiced efficiency that barely masked their unease. Detective Miles Corbin, a veteran of Seattle PD's homicide unit, arrived shortly after. His 50-odd years had etched lines of weariness around his eyes, but his gaze remained sharp, missing nothing. Beside him was Detective Lena Sharma, a rising star in her early 30s, whose sharp intellect and technological prowess had earned her a reputation as a relentless, if sometimes too earnest, investigator. "Clean," Corbin muttered, surveying the scene with a practiced eye. "Too clean." Sharma, already taking detailed photographs and mentally cataloging every minute detail, nodded. "No signs of struggle, no defensive wounds. Looks like she was asleep. Or incapacitated." She pointed to a half-empty glass of water on the bedside table. "Could be a sedative." The medical examiner, Dr. Eris Thorne, a man whose dry wit belied his morbid profession, confirmed Sharma's suspicion. Sarah Jenkins had indeed been sedated, deeply. The cause of death was exsanguination from the carotid artery transection, a cold, clinical term for bleeding out. The murder weapon, a blade of unusual sharpness, had been applied with a chilling expertise. "This wasn't a random act of passion, Miles," Thorne stated, his voice low. "This was deliberate, planned. And the bird." He gestured to the small carving. "No fingerprints on it. Not Sarah's, not the killer's. Wiped clean." The news of Sarah Jenkins' murder spread through Seattle like a virus, injecting a tremor of unease into the usually placid city. Initial reports, however, were tempered by the assumption of a lone, isolated tragedy. Perhaps a jilted lover, a business rival, or a burglary gone wrong, despite the lack of anything stolen. Then, 2 weeks later, The blanket of denial was violently ripped away. Michael Chun, a reclusive but renowned classical guitarist, was found dead in his minimalist apartment in Queen Anne. Like Sarah, he was discovered by a concerned neighbor. Like Sarah, there was no sign of forced entry. Like Sarah, he had been sedated. Like Sarah, his throat had been cut with the same chilling precision. And beside his hand, another meticulously carved wooden bird, this time, an American robin, its delicate form a stark contrast to the brutal scene. Corbin and Sharma stood over Chen's body, the grim déjà vu palpable. "Another artist," Sharma observed, her voice barely a whisper. "A designer, a musician. Is that a pattern or a coincidence?" "Coincidence is a lazy man's explanation," Corbin grunted, his gaze sweeping the room. Two victims, 2 weeks apart. Both sedated, same method, same MO. And the birds. "No, Lena, this isn't a coincidence. We have a serial killer." The realization hit the city like a thunderclap. The media, initially cautious, now erupted in a frenzy. Headlines screamed. Speculation ran wild. The Seattle Police Department found itself under immense pressure. A task force was swiftly assembled, Corbin and Sharma at its head. The ensuing weeks were a blur of frustrating dead ends. They interviewed neighbors, friends, colleagues. Sarah Jenkins and Michael Chun had no apparent connection. They moved in different social circles, had different habits, different backgrounds. The only common thread was their artistic inclinations and the chilling, avian signature. "The birds," Sharma mused during a late-night session, her eyes bloodshot from staring at crime scene photos. "What do they mean? Are they trophies? A message? A calling card?" Corbin lit a cigarette, the forbidden habit one of his few remaining vices. "He leaves them, doesn't take them. He wants us to find them. He wants us to see them." The lack of forensic evidence was maddening. No usable fingerprints, no DNA, no forced entry. It was as if the killer was a ghost, slipping in and out of secured apartments without leaving a trace, other than the victims and their silent, wooden sentinels. The media, in its insatiable hunger for a narrative, coined a moniker for the elusive killer, the Emerald City Phantom. The name stuck, imbuing the unknown perpetrator with an almost mythical, terrifying quality. The city began to change. A subtle undercurrent of fear permeated everyday life. Doors were double-locked, alarms were installed, and glances lingered a little longer on strangers. The rain, once a soothing presence, now felt heavy, oppressive, as if weeping for the city's lost innocence. 3 weeks after Michael Chen's murder, the phantom struck again. Emily Davis, a beloved kindergarten teacher known for her vibrant personality and infectious laugh, lived in a cozy bungalow in West Seattle. Her neighbors, a close-knit community, were the first to notice her absence when she didn't show up for her morning coffee ritual. The discovery was horrifyingly familiar. The unlocked door, the sedated victim, the precise cut, and the small wooden carving. This time, it was a Western tanager, its vibrant painted feathers a stark contrast to the pallor of Emily's skin. The pattern was now undeniable, terrifyingly consistent. 3 victims roughly 2 weeks apart, all living alone, all sedated, all killed with surgical precision, all left with a unique, handcrafted wooden bird, and no forensic trail whatsoever. The press conference held by SPD Chief Harrison was tense. He promised resources, vowed justice, but his words felt hollow against the backdrop of a terrified city. Inside the task force, morale was plummeting. Leads dried up almost as quickly as they appeared. Every single tip, no matter how outlandish, was pursued with dwindling hope. Sharma, however, refused to yield. Late one night, hunched over her laptop in a deserted office, she started building a comprehensive database. Not just of the victims, but of everything associated with the crime scenes, no matter how trivial. She meticulously cataloged the species of each bird, the type of wood, the style of carving. She mapped the locations of the murders, searching for geographical patterns. She pored over victim profiles, trying to unearth a hidden link. Sarah Jenkins, graphic designer. Michael Chun, classical guitarist. Emily Davis, kindergarten teacher, she muttered to herself, staring at their smiling faces on her screen. Creatives, nurturers, people who bring beauty or joy into the world. She paused, a flicker of an idea sparking in her mind. Or, people who simply are. Corbin found her there, the glow of the screen illuminating her determined face. Anything? He asked, his voice rough with exhaustion. She looked up, her eyes wide. Maybe. I've cross-referenced all the victims' online presences, social media, professional portfolios. They all had public-facing roles, even if minor. They put themselves out there in some way. So, he targets people who are visible? Perhaps not overtly visible, but discoverable. Not celebrities, not public figures, but people whose lives, interests, and even home addresses could be found with some effort. And their apartments, all of them, had large windows, easily visible from the street or neighboring buildings. It's almost as if he was watching them first. Corbin stared at the map on the screen, a chilling constellation of red dots marking the murder sites. Capitol Hill, Queen, and West Seattle. Dispersed, yet connected by the invisible threads of a phantom's gaze. He's not just killing them, Lena, Corbin said slowly, his voice laced with grim understanding. He's making a statement, a twisted, silent statement. And the birds, they're not just a signature, they're part of the message. But what is it? The rain lashed against the windows, a mournful drumbeat. Outside, the city huddled in fear, waiting for the next whisper of dread, the next avian omen of death. The Emerald City Phantom was not just taking lives. He was stealing peace, one silent, precise incision at a time. The hunt for this ghost had just begun, and it felt like they were chasing a shadow that always remained one step ahead, perpetually veiled by the ceaseless Seattle mist. The weeks that followed Emily Davis's murder descended into a maelstrom of fear and frustration. The Emerald City, once bustling with life and a vibrant art scene, now felt cloaked in a perpetual twilight. People avoided going out after dark, social events dwindled, and a pervasive paranoia settled over the populace. The media, no longer content with mere reporting, began to openly criticize the Seattle Police Department, their headlines dripping with accusations of incompetence and helplessness. The pressure on Corbin and Sharma's task force became immense, a suffocating weight that threatened to fracture their already strained team. Another 2 weeks and another victim. Benjamin Carter, a popular local barista and aspiring photographer, was found in his ground-floor apartment in Fremont. His passion was urban decay photography, capturing the overlooked beauty in forgotten corners of the city. The method was identical. Sedated, precise throat incision, no forced entry, and the ubiquitous wooden bird a northern flicker, its distinctive markings painted with chilling accuracy. For victims, for meticulously executed murders. The pattern now seemed solidified, yet the motive remained an impenetrable enigma. The task force, now expanded to over 50 officers, swamped every lead, every tip, every possible connection. But the phantom remained a ghost, his presence only marked by the chilling aftermath of his acts. He's not leaving a single trace, Detective Miller, a younger officer with a perpetually worried expression, exclaimed during a heated strategy meeting. No fibers, no prints, no DNA. It's like he disappears into thin air. That's because he's careful, Miller, Corbin retorted, his patience wearing thin. He's methodical. He knows what he's doing. He's probably been planning this for a long time. Sharma, however, had been silently working on a new approach. She had become obsessed with the wooden birds. She'd spent countless hours with an ornithologist, identifying each species, noting their habitats, migration patterns, and unique characteristics. She also sought out wood-carving experts trying to decipher the technique. The birds aren't random miles, she presented one evening, spreading out magnified photographs of the 4 carvings on a large light table. They're all common to the Puget Sound region, yes. But look closer at the carving style. It's incredibly precise, almost artisanal. The wood used for each, while varying slightly, is always local, typically alder or maple. And the finish. It's a very specific, almost translucent sealant. Corbin leaned in, studying the minute details. So, he's not just a killer, he's a craftsman. A woodcarver. Exactly. And a very skilled one. Finding someone with this level of expertise. It narrows our search. And the birds themselves. Sarah had a chickadee, Michael a robin, Emily a tanager, Benjamin a flicker. These are all common backyard birds, often seen in urban environments, yes. But they also represent different aspects of the local ecosystem. A chickadee, small and adaptable. A robin, often seen as a harbinger of spring. A tanager, vibrant and migratory. A flicker, often found foraging in urban parks. Are you suggesting a symbolic meaning? Corbin asked, a flicker of intrigue in his tired eyes. It's possible. Or maybe he's simply using what's readily available and familiar to him. But there's another thing. I've analyzed the exact time between each murder. It's not precisely 2 weeks, but it hovers around 14 to 16 days. There's a rhythm to it, a deliberate spacing. Just as they felt a glimmer of hope, the Phantom delivered a chilling taunt. A package arrived at the Seattle Times, addressed simply to the editors. Inside was a small, unmarked USB drive. When a tech expert from the paper hesitantly plugged it in, a single, short video clip played. It was grainy, shot from a distance, showing the exterior of a nondescript apartment building in the Central District. A figure, silhouetted against a window, could be seen moving around inside. The clip was only 10 seconds long, silent, and then it cut out. Attached was a note, elegantly typed. A silent echo for a silent city. Watch for the fifth wing. The Central District. Immediately, a wave of panic surged through the task force. They knew this was a premeditated taunt, a twisted game. The apartment building in the video was quickly identified. Officers swarmed the location, evacuating residents, frantically searching for a potential victim, for any sign of the Phantom. They were too late. Inside an apartment on the 3rd floor, Detective Sharma found the scene. This time, it was a young woman named Chloe Evans, a bright, ambitious data analyst. She had been a remote worker, living a quiet life, often spending evenings alone, reading by her window. The familiar, horrifying tableau awaited them. The sedated victim, the precise incision, the absence of struggle. And beside her hand, another wooden bird, a Steller's jay, known for its bold intelligence and striking blue plumage, carefully crafted with a tiny, almost imperceptible chip on one of its painted wings. The fifth wing. The city exploded. The Phantom had not only continued his reign of terror, but had openly challenged the police, taunting them with a morbid countdown. Public outrage reached a boiling point. The mayor demanded results. The chief of police was on the verge of resignation. Corbin and Sharma felt the weight of an entire city's fear resting on their shoulders. He told us, Sharma whispered, staring at the Steller's jay. He literally told us where he was going to strike next, and we still couldn't stop him. The despair in her voice was raw. Corbin placed a hand on her shoulder. He's playing a game, Lena. A very specific, very calculated game. But the chipped wing, that's new. That's a mistake. A deviation from his perfect pattern. That minor imperfection became Sharma's obsession. She theorized it was either a deliberate message or, finally, an actual error. She expanded her search for skilled woodcarvers, specifically looking for anyone who might specialize in Pacific Northwest bird species. Anyone whose work showed such a precise, detailed style, and who might have produced a slightly flawed piece. She broadened her geographic search, knowing that the Phantom could easily commute between different parts of the city. Corbin, meanwhile, returned to the victimology, pushing past the obvious. What if the link wasn't just artistic or discoverable? What if it was deeper, more psychological? He started looking for patterns in their lives beyond their professions. Any shared experiences, any subtle connection to a specific location, an event, or even a particular emotional state. One rainy afternoon, buried deep in old police reports, Corbin stumbled upon a cold case from 15 years prior. A missing persons case. A young woman named Alara Vance, an incredibly talented amateur artist and environmentalist, had vanished without a trace from a remote cabin near the Olympic National Forest, just a few hours west of Seattle. Her case had gone cold, overshadowed by other events. The only thing found was a half-finished wood carving of a Stellar's jay, left on her workbench. The carving had a tiny, almost imperceptible chip on one of its painted wings. Corbin's blood ran cold. He immediately called Sharma. "Lena, I think I found something. The Stellar's jay, the chipped wing, is not just a taunt. It's a reference." Sharma, her mind racing, pulled up Alara Vance's missing person file. She saw a photograph of the half-finished bird, confirming the identical flaw. "Alara Vance," Sharma read aloud, her voice strained. Her parents owned a small wood-carving shop in the Pike Place market for decades, specializing in local birds. They closed down after her disappearance, devastated. "A woodcarver's daughter," Corbin breathed. "An artist, an environmentalist. And she vanished with only a similar bird carving left behind. What if this isn't just a killer leaving a signature, Lena? What if he's performing a twisted act of remembrance? Or revenge?" They delved into Alara Vance's past. Her social circle, her family, her close friends. One name kept surfacing: Elias Vance, her older brother. He had been distraught by her disappearance, campaigning tirelessly for years, then slowly retreating from public life, becoming a recluse. He had inherited his parents' quiet artistic talent, often assisting them in their shop. He was known for his intricate, detailed carvings. After his sister vanished, he'd taken a job as an archivist at a local natural history museum, a quiet, solitary position. "Elias Vance," Sharma repeated, typing his name into the database. His address popped up. A small, unassuming house in a quiet, tree-lined street in the Beacon Hill neighborhood, with a large, meticulously tended garden. And in the backyard, partially obscured by overgrown shrubbery, was a small, detached shed, likely a workshop. A cold, terrifying logic began to form. Elias Vance, a skilled woodcarver from a family of woodcarvers. His sister, Alara, disappeared, leaving behind a chipped Stellar's jay carving. Now, a killer leaves victims with similarly carved birds, the last of which has the identical, unique flaw. The victims: artists, creatives, people who put themselves out there, much like Alara had. Was he avenging her? Was he reenacting her disappearance? Or perhaps a perceived injustice? Corbin and Sharma stared at each other, the same horrifying realization dawning in their eyes. The Emerald City Phantom might not be a random monster, but a disturbed craftsman, haunted by a past tragedy, seeking a twisted form of retribution. And he had been hiding in plain sight, a quiet archivist, painstakingly carving his macabre messages for a terrified city, all leading back to a single, unsolved mystery from years ago. The labyrinth of shadows was finally beginning to yield its monstrous secret. The lead on Elias Vance ignited a desperate surge of energy within the task force. The pieces, once scattered and seemingly disparate, began to snap into a chillingly coherent picture. Elias, a quiet man consumed by grief and a deep-seated sense of injustice, had slowly transformed into the Emerald City Phantom. His sister, Alara, had not just disappeared. She had been a profound influence, a vibrant spirit connected to nature and art, whose loss had twisted Elias's perspective on the world. Sharma, with her characteristic meticulousness, dug deeper into Elias Vance. She found his online footprint sparse but telling. He frequented obscure forums on ornithology and woodcraft. His posts, though infrequent, betrayed a passionate, almost obsessive reverence for nature and a growing disdain for what he perceived as the superficiality and encroaching ugliness of modern urban life. He spoke of restoring balance, of silencing the noise. His language, initially poetic, grew increasingly dark and resentful over the years following his sister's disappearance. Corbin, meanwhile, pursued the cold case of Alara Vance. He revisited the detectives who had worked the original case, now retired and weary. The prevailing theory back then had been that Alara, an adventurous spirit, had simply wandered off into the vast wilderness of the Olympic National Forest, succumbing to the elements, her body never found. But Elias had always vehemently rejected this. He believed she had been murdered, her spirit consumed by the city's careless encroachment on nature. He'd argued with authorities, claiming they didn't care enough about her, or about the natural world she cherished. The task force obtained a search warrant for Elias Vance's property. The raid was planned for early morning, a swift, decisive strike. The fear was that any warning might prompt him to flee, or worse, to claim another victim. As the SWAT team moved in, Corbin and Sharma watched from a discreet distance, their hearts thudding with a mixture of apprehension and grim anticipation. The small, unassuming house on Beacon Hill was surrounded. The front door was breached with a practiced burst, and within minutes, the house was secured. Elias Vance was found in his small, cluttered living room, calmly sipping a cup of tea, a partially carved piece of alder wood in his hands. He offered no resistance, his eyes vacant but strangely serene. He was taken into custody without incident, a man whose quiet demeanor belied the monstrous acts he had committed. The true horrors were found in the detached workshop in his backyard. It was meticulously organized, a craftsman's haven. The air was thick with the scent of wood shavings and sealant. On a large workbench, a collection of tools lay, gleaming chisels, knives, sanding blocks. And there, arrayed with chilling precision, were dozens of wooden bird carvings, each a masterpiece of miniature artistry. Many were finished, some incomplete, others simply blanks of wood awaiting their transformation. On a wall, pinned like trophies, were photographs of his victims, all subtly retouched to remove any trace of urban background, placing them instead within lush, natural settings, often with one of his birds flying overhead. As Sharma surveyed the chilling display, she noticed a small, personal journal, its leather cover worn from frequent handling, lying open on the workbench. It was Elias Vance's chronicle, his twisted manifesto. The journal revealed the full, horrific scope of his delusion. Alara's disappearance, for Elias, wasn't an accident or a simple missing person case. It was a symbolic act, the city consuming a pure, natural spirit. He believed the authorities, obsessed with urban crimes and human failings, had dismissed her because she represented nature, something they didn't understand or value. His victims, he wrote, were echoes of Alara's fate. They were individuals who, in his deranged mind, had contributed to the noise, or taken beauty without giving back. He saw himself not as a murderer, but as a curator of silence, restoring a twisted form of balance, offering them a final, pristine sleep and a natural resting place, symbolized by his birds. Each victim had been carefully selected. Sarah Jenkins, whose graphic designs cluttered the urban landscape with commercial messages. Michael Chun, whose music, though beautiful, added to the constant hum of city life. Emily Davis, a teacher who instilled urban values in children. Benjamin Carter, whose photography captured urban decay but, in Elias's eyes, glorified it. Chloe Evans, whose data analysis further streamlined the unnatural urban machine. He had watched them, studied their routines, found their vulnerabilities, always with the same methodical, almost ritualistic approach. He had learned the art of silent entry, of chemical sedation, and of the swift, precise cut, perfecting his craft with each victim. The chipped Stellar's J for Chloe Evans was indeed a direct reference to Alara. In Elias's mind, Chloe, as a data analyst, was the epitome of the unnatural order that had broken Alara. It was his way of bringing his sister's unhealed wound into the present, demanding recognition for her loss. During his interrogation, Elias Vance remained calm, almost detached. He spoke of his victims without remorse, seeing them as mere components in his grand, tragic art piece. "They were all so loud, detective," he murmured to Corbin, his eyes distant. "Even in their quietest moments, their lives were full of noise. I simply helped them find their silence. My sister, she deserved silence." The trial of Elias Vance was a sensation. The public, while relieved he was captured, grappled with the chilling reality of his motive. He was a quiet, unassuming man, a seemingly gentle artist, who harbored such profound darkness. He was found guilty on all counts, his sanity questioned but ultimately found fit to stand trial. He received multiple life sentences, ensuring he would never again walk free. In the aftermath, Seattle slowly began to heal, but the scars remained. The Emerald City Phantom became a haunting urban legend, a stark reminder of the fragile line between creativity and madness, between grief and vengeance. People still looked at the wooden birds, once symbols of natural beauty, with a new, unsettling understanding. Detectives Corbin and Sharma, forever changed by the case, found a new depth to their partnership. Corbin, the seasoned veteran, had learned to trust Sharma's intuitive leaps and technological prowess. Sharma, in turn, had learned the invaluable lesson of human instinct and the subtle, often overlooked details that only experience could uncover. They had faced the deepest shadows of humanity and emerged, but not unscathed. The rain continued to fall over Seattle, sometimes a soft drizzle, sometimes a torrential downpour. But now, for many, the comforting blanket of the weeping sky felt a little heavier, a little colder. The city had faced its phantom, unmasked its monster, but the echo of his silent, deadly art lingered, a perpetual whisper in the heart of the Emerald City. And in that whisper, a chilling reminder that some darkness, once unleashed, can never truly be forgotten.